Thanks, Toby. Today, I'm going to talk about our favorite topic, email, our love and hatred. Email meant to simplify our life, but in fact, it doesn't. Luckily, we have some automation tools, such as spam filter and email filter, which you can write simple rules based on the metadata of incoming messages. But email load is still a problem nowadays. Around 30% of our time is spent on dealing with email, and more time we spend on email, we got more stress, and we got less productive. And the problem is we got so many of them. So we study if email handling is automatable, and we systemically conduct need-finding study on email automation. In order to understand what type of email automation user want, we conduct 3 different studies. Starting from the open-ended survey, we ask our survey participants what type of email automation you want, what type of rules you want to conduct on your inbox in ideal setting. And to understand what is the state of the art of email automation software, we look into email scripts on Github. And those examples are quite interesting, but yet very experimental. Last one, we're looking into rather more realistic example. We implement and deploy our email automation tool to our users and see what type of rules users come up with. And from these 3 different studies, we've drawn this conclusion. Our current email clients are not enough to satisfy the automation needs from the email users. Starting from the survey, I will go through one by one study and what needs we found from each individual study. In the survey, before we conduct our survey, in order to design our questionnaire, we conduct a preliminary design workshop, and from the workshop results, we are able to construct design survey questionnaire. So we asked the 13 computer scientists what type of rules you want to conduct on your inbox. You can imagine any method or objects are existing. As a result, this is a picture we collected from the workshop. We collected 42 different ideas, and based on this, we designed our survey. In our survey, in order to invite participants to elaborate on their email automations, we frame our survey as following. Imagine there's a smart robot for you, and your smart robot is going to conduct your rules on your inbox. So try to explain and try to be kind to your robot so robot can follow your rules. As a result, we collected 77 different responses from general public, and half of them doesn't have a technical background, and 35% are coming outside of the university settings. And in order to validate our responses, we conducted inter-rater reliability, and it works as following. So on the left, this is an example responses we collected from users, from survey respondents. And 2 of our authors independently rate each one of the responses and see how many there are matches. And as a result, we got 80% of agreements. And from this survey, we are able to see what type of ideas for email automation users try to accomplish. As you look into the survey responses, we identify this type of email needs, and I will go through some of them. Which are data model? So this is the current data model of email clients. It simply has who is the sender, who is the subject line, what is the arrival date, and such. But as we look into the responses from the user, we need more than that. We need to store and access to latent information, such as what is the priority of the message? What is any deadline? Is there any deadline in the message? And is there any actions required? This is an example from the response. And the first one requires a new data attributes to required actions of the message. And the second one requires a new data attribute deadline of the message. Moving on to the second category is context-sensitive rules. So this is a response we got from one of our respondents. So it's basically saying, so my priority is not a fixed concept. It's changed every time and based on my context. Inspired by this, we define 2 contexts, internal and external context. Internal is the things happening inside the inbox, such as what is the number of unread messages, what is the status of other messages in the email thread. So this is an example from the apparently like a faculty. So if I get a lot of emails to go through, I want to tell, and if I get an email from my grad students, please wait until I'm not busy. An external contact is things happening outside the inbox, such as what is my schedule, where I'm located right now, and what is the date, time of the, what time is right now. And for example, so if I have an entry, calendar entry, I obviously want to highlight the emails related to this, related to my calendar schedule. And also, there's some needs that they want to change to visualize their inbox. For example, they want to change the way they visualize their email thread. One respondent say, this current email client is not very effective to one-line messages. And I want to, so if I have a fast exchanging messages, I want to visualize my email thread as a Slack interface. And also, people wants to control over the interruption by email notification. They want to control the notification when they get notified or like how they get notified, depending on the priority of the message and what am I doing right now. Moving on to second research problem, we want to understand how programmers like try to customize their email clients, and what is the state of the art of email software. To do so, we look into the email-related scripts on Github, the online code repository. And this is a way how we find those scripts. First of all, we look into the source code if it's making use of IMAP. IMAP is the standard email protocols. So we look into source code if they're importing any popular IMAP library. And we add this second criteria. So there's a many library we find which is using email, simply like sending verification email or user registration email, which is not the type of automation we are looking for. So in order to exclude them, we specifically look into the repository, like which includes keyword email in the README file. As a result, we collected 500 scripts from GitHub, and we did an interpreter reliability as we did in the survey, and we got 65% of interpreter reliability. From this probe, we are able to find the needs that are important enough to programmers, so they actually took their time to implement those scripts. And also, we find some needs that didn't occur to non-programmers from our first survey. So one might say, so we already have 500 scripts, so email problem solved. We just can use like one of the scripts to like, automate our inbox. It turns out that's not a case. Only 12 out of 500 are pre-packaged applications, which can be used in turnkey fashion. The rest of them requires a little bit of programming skills to integrate those scripts into email clients. And so we identified some needs, and some of them are echoing from the survey results, but some of them are newly appeared in our second probe. Echoing the results from the survey, they want to try the way the inbox the way they visualize their inbox. For instance, they try to mimic different social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, or Slack. And also echoing the results from the survey, they try to customize push notification. So they connect their email system to Raspberry Pi. So whenever there's a new email coming in, they give a visual cue at Raspberry Pi. And this one doesn't appear in our the previous survey. It's about email analytics and productivity. So user wants to gain insights and statistics about their email usage, and they try to understand how they successfully deal with their emails. This is particularly interesting to us because it reflects previous research that email users see their inbox as a task management tool. Moving on to our third study, we implement and deploy our simple inbox scripting tool and see if user would use our tool, or if user can implement their own email automation tool in real environment. So this is our simple inbox scripting tool, which is so we implement in Python, And this is a web interface where they can write rules and debug their own email automation tools. And through our interface, people can use their own rules using simple Python scripts, Python syntax. And what happens under the hood is we're using IMAP, the standard email protocols. So since IMAP is being used by most of modern email clients, our users can use our system without changing their own setting and use our system as a simple add-on. So this is the example API functions we have in our API. We of course have a getter and setter functions for individual message, and so that they can access to metadata of individual messages. And also inspired by our previous studies, people want to incorporate their internal context of that state of the inbox. So we have this. We provide this function get history, which returns what is the state of the previous conversation with this given context. And also inspired by our previous study, people want to make their inbox dynamically and working differently for their different situation. So we let them define their own email mode. So famous example for the email mode is vacation mode. Whenever you set your email to the vacation mode and someone sends you an email, like it auto replies, I'm on vacation. So this is an example that user come up with, email mode that the user come up with. So evening is like is an after work mode. So if I done with the work, I want to highlight the emails from my family. And also there's a conference mode. Since I'm a Kai, I want to highlight the emails from the Kai attendants so that I'm not missing any lunch or any meetups. We deploy our system to 12 programmers per week, and we are able to collect the rules that are actually user would actually write, and as well as revise for a course of the week. So this is an example of scripts we collected on the left. So if I get an emails about free food after lunchtime, auto delete it. On the right, if there's any mailing list getting really busy and there's so many mail exchangings, I want to ignore and mute those messages. So we are able to collect 24 unique email modes from our deployment. And we already have a lot of email automation tools, such as email filter. And what our users try to do at our system is they write their email filter rules, but they want to turn on and off for a particular period of time, which cannot be done in email filter. So for example, like if I have a rule that I'm sending, if I get an email from a family member, I hide it to the family folder, but I want to turn off the rule after my work time. And also there's a rules that incorporate internal context. So they're saying if I recently exchanging emails with this person, I want to prioritize those emails. And also there's some case of external context. So this person have two different modes, and this mode is changed depending on what time of the day. So there's a research mode and sleep mode, and their email will behave differently for two modes. From this study, from this three different study, we are able to see what type of email automation users are looking for. And three of our studies brought us and allowed us to see different aspects of email automation. First of all, survey let us see what is open-ended idea from the general public. And the second one, mining Github, let us see identify needs that are important enough for developers. So actually they took their time to implement those scripts. And the third one, we are able to see the real examples and that user would actually use to their inbox. And to our surprise, most of them are not possible in current clients. And especially, we are very surprised by this number, 40%, and it means 60% could have been done in our email clients. And we asked them, why haven't you implement your rules in your current clients? And they're saying, current email filter is so complicated and hard to debug. One of them say, one of our users say, email filter, I try and I play with it, but I failed. And also, since they're all programmers, they have this tendency that they prefer writing in Python program language, which is more due to its flexibility and code reusability by copy and paste. So now we can see that we need a new email system where users can express what type of automation they want in their own language. So our future work is we are going to develop make our richer programmer language, targeting first programmers. And moving forward from that, we are going to adding GUI so that even non-programmers can automate their email without our systems, without programmer skills. And we are about to deploy our system named UPS, the United Postal Service, and we call it Your Postal Service. And we are about to deploy our system. So if you want to program your inbox or play with our API, please send me an email, and we'll set up an account. And thank you.
Please come to the microphone if you have any question.
Hello, Liz Gerber from Northwestern. Great study. I'm going to ask the provocative question, which is, why not go one level up and just eliminate email? And I say this because ultimately this is about attention and time management and prioritization of information coming in and information going out. So if you were to step way back, or maybe step into the future 50 years, what's the bigger goal? What should we really be designing for? If it is about information management and attention.
Yeah, I think you're right. Our big focus is about attention management. So I think bigger goal, if you're looking for, is we want to extend our design lesson to even different domains, such as social network, so that people can control over their information, not only restricted to email, but also social network, so they can be top of those information management.
Thank you, Liz. Dan Russell from Google. You've done a very nice study of, it seems to me like the information email needs of computer scientists. I'm wondering how you would take similar methods to actually study the other 99.9% of humanity. Because GitHub is not going to work.
Sure.
And let me tell you a little story that's interesting here, which is one of the most important changes that ever happened to Google, the search engine, was to implement spell correction. Nobody asked for spell correction. They did not perceive it as a problem. But I'll tell you, people can't spell the word cow. I've seen the logs. They can't spell. And so we were looking at the logs and go, oh, yeah, that really is bad. We should implement spell correct. You see where I'm going, right? Some of the most useful things are not the things that people themselves perceive as a problem.
Got it.
So what would you do? Give me advice about how I can study the email needs of 99.9% of humanity.
To answer the question, so our survey is open to even non-programmers, and we try to understand if would be there any difference between the programmers and non-programmers, and we compare those responses to population, and we found there's no big difference between two. So we are saying is
wait, you said there was not a big difference, or there is
not a big difference.
There's not a big difference.
Yeah. So the things we can. As for the email, So I'm saying at least for the email, email users already have a concrete idea, even though they're non-programmers. They know how they want to automate it, or how they want to construct their email system. So.
One follow-up question, which is, didn't your survey include things like what kind of rules would you want to write? How many non-programmers understand that sentence?
I think that's for our design workshop, and in our survey we didn't use any technical terms to invite non-programmers. So it's framed in totally different languages.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're out of. Sorry, we're out of time for questions. Let's thank Soya again for the great talk.